Hi, host Eric here. Talking to famous people. I've got some people in attendance here. Milkman, Texas Hayes. These are people whose names I'm unfamiliar with. Dash, and QB Sauce. I was going to talk this evening. I wanted to talk about this simulation theory thing that Dash was telling me about at dinner. So let's, before we go on to talking to Milkman and Texas Hayes and find out if they want to do personality typing or whatever, before we go back and redo the video with ENFP fellow here about ENFP-ness, then I want to make sure that we talk about this issue here because I think it's really interesting. So, Dosh, can you talk a little bit about this simulation theory? Explain what it is that you were telling me about at dinner.
Yeah, sure. It's basically, I suppose you could describe it as a skeptical view in philosophy, or a view that would, sort of challenge some of our very fundamental intuitions about how the world works and how reality works. But the argument basically suggests that the reality we experience is one created by a very advanced computer simulation that some sort of alien, you might describe them as alien, I guess, aliens, would be running. And that might seem like a rather implausible view, but there's a lot of good probabilistic arguments to support it. Namely, the current trajectory of our own technological development. So, we've had computers for around 40 years. They've improved drastically in terms of their sophistication. And even with the comparatively primitive computers that we have now, we have begun to run simulations. So if you've ever played the game Civilization, for example, that's a good example of what I'm describing. It is it's a computer game, but it simulates historical counterfactuals, and we're running millions of these simulations. So presumably, if we got to a point in our technological development where we had the ability, basically artificial intelligence, where we had the ability to create simulations as rich and vivid as the ones I'm describing, we would probably simulate thousands of counterfactuals to our current reality, which suggests that it's probable that we are in such a simulation being run by some other life form. In fact, there are statisticians and people much smarter than myself who suggest that the odds that that is the case are in the billions, and that the probability of us being in the base reality is 1 out of several billion. So yeah, that's pretty much the argument.
Any thoughts, anybody?
This is Texas Hayes. I'm the ENFP guy that was talking earlier. I kind of chimed in at the end of that. I was sidetracked by something on TV, but just having different forms of reality that can possibly be controlling us. I don't know if I 100% believe in that as concrete as it sounds, but there is something that I believe controls us from another dimension or what have you, with the parallel universes and stuff like that. I 100% believe in that. I don't know if there's one controller or not, or if they're directly controlling us or not, but I'm welcome to that thought and exploring what the possibilities could be, because that's something that I've always been interested in. It's just, does another outside entity have control over us,
Well, here's the issue about such a simulation. One of the problems that we have is these mechanics of quantum probability or improbability, and that's going to make things a little more complicated, right? Because You're saying, well, how can you simulate something in which the simulators make things manifestly one way or the other without... It would seem to imply that they never really had any choices in the first place, right? The simulation would tend to imply determinism, right?
Yeah, I think so. The conclusion would definitely be that our free will is illusory, or at least, we're choosing between a finite amount of possibilities.
4. Not 4. The issue I have with it is, first of all, it assumes that the passage of time is simulated as well. Normally we can think of the future as that which has not yet occurred, so it's impossible to say with 100% certainty any prediction. If that were the case, then it would not be a simulation, because I guess the definitional difference between a simulation and a non-simulation is predictability. Can you simulate a chaotic system that can predictably produce, in which you can produce predictions about what's going to happen and simultaneously simulate that?
Is like past civilizations are they kind of end on the same note? Is that going to be the same for our time, that we kind of end on a similar pattern, I guess, is something that I'm interested in.
I don't think we do. I don't think we repeat past civilizations at this point.
Well, I think that all civilizations invariably fail, or become something distinguishable from what they started as. Different enough that you can't really call the resulting project the same civilization. I think it's sort of a... You might say that that's like a historical or an anthropological axiom about the way these types of things work.
I mean, the thing is, with the progress of human civilization, right now, we have a much more stark differentiation between civilized and uncivilized world, and it's much more justified than it ever has been in the past. There's always been this ongoing battle between the civilized and uncivilized world, and much of the battle has been between those who would claim they're civilized but behave uncivilized, and those who would claim they're civilized but behave uncivilized. So it's between two uncivilized peoples, right? But in the contemporary world, the West, the modern West, democratic West, is clearly superior to the Islamic world in all meaningful regards. So,
I mean, some would suggest that their uncivilizedness is a product of things like colonialism and empire, which unequivocally helped us achieve our current level of structure and organization.
well, okay, fine. I find that irrelevant. Like, it doesn't matter if we caused them or not. The fact is, there is a clear differentiation between the barbarians of the world and the civilized people of the world. Those who are in favor of free and open societies with transparent mechanisms of accountability are fundamentally better and good, whereas those who oppose them are fundamentally worse and bad.
Agreed.
So that's a big difference, I think, than before. Second, it's difficult to hide away your evil nowadays. And it's difficult to, it's like the only reason that tyrants can continue being tyrants is because they are not ever held to account for their arguments.
Yeah, I mean, there's still plenty of places in the world where that's the case.
Well, I mean, even here, right? Why do we elect those presidents and not some others? Well, because what do they control more than anything else? Access to actually asking the candidates questions and getting clear-cut answers.
I mean, I don't know. I think the current election is kind of evidence that that's not entirely the case.
Well, I mean, why isn't the Libertarian candidate up there engaging in as much conversation? Why isn't the presidential campaign a political discourse that actually involves the candidates talking to people who are not with scripted setups, not with prepared answers, but actually say, well, I'm going to show you that I'm willing to answer all your questions.
Right, I think that's evidence that what you're describing is not, true of the current political climate.
Right, I agree it's not. I'm not saying that the things are great now. I'm saying that we do have significant problems now, but the extent to which we do, it's because we're too much like them. We don't prioritize transparency. We don't prioritize openness.
Yeah.
Accountability mechanisms.
Yeah. I think one thing that terrifies me, and one thing I find very unsettling, is the world has never been a better place than it is now, and the world is still terrible.
It's much less terrible though.
Yeah, but I think sort of an interesting thought I had the other day is that you can use our moral progress to chart our age as a species. So it seems like moral progress is positively correlated with time. Things have definitely gotten better as time has progressed, and things are still terrible, which I think is evidence that as a species, humans are very young. In comparison to hypothetical, alien groups, which I think it's probable that they exist.
Thoughts from the group?
No, not really. Not really.
Okay, well, let's wrap up this topic and move on to another topic. I have been host Eric, here with very special guest, host David of the simulation, Simulated David Dosh.
I'm actually just a simulation. I'm
Yeah.
not a real person.
Yeah.
Host Eric could turn me off if he wanted to. I mean, he does turn me off.
Yeah, after this, he's
Slightly different ways.
all right. All right. Thanks for watching Talking with Fans, people.